Rebel ladies, we all know some things are just inevitable, and one of those is menopause, which unfortunately seems to be a, a topic that is not generally discussed. I know when I went through it, and I went through it instantly because I went into it as a result of a hysterectomy for cancer. So it was like instant menopause. And I had no experience, and there was nothing really out there to guide me, to tell me what to expect, what not to expect, how to deal with it. It was hard. So I can only imagine what it must be like for everyone else, especially since there is very little support, very little discussion. And so our topic today is all about menopause. Welcome to the Rebel Tribe, where empowerment meets attitude and sass meets savvy. As you know, we are not just another podcast. We are your virtual tribe of fierce females ready to conquer the world. And today we're going to conquer menopause. So join us as we smash through those stereotypes and break barriers and redefine what it means to be a woman in today's world. So get ready, ladies, because this one is a hot topic for all of you. My guests today, you already have met two of them. If you're subscribers, especially, you have met Claudine, who is a functional medicine expert. You've met Miss Arkansas Senior, what I always get this wrong. Miss Senior America Arkansas, is that right? Help me here.
The state comes first. Miss Arkansas Senior America,
There we go.
2017, and state pageant administrator.
And
Yeah.
a Olympic athlete, and now an actress. So, hey, okay. And Lena, who is going through menopause herself and has some insights and some questions. So we have a panel of ladies here that have everything you need to know. So let's get started. Ladies, you heard me talk about the fact that when I went through this, I was pretty much on my own. So why do you think that is? Why do you think menopause is still such it's so taboo? Why? Because it's something we all experience.
I know for myself, what I think is our age group of women, we were taught you don't talk about your period. You don't talk about anything that does with the female body, anything to do with a woman's menstrual cycles. All of that was laughed at and made fun of by men, and it was supposed to just be kept quiet. Nobody talked about menopause. Nobody told you about your period. You just started your period and you dealt with it. And that's how we were expected to deal with menopause.
Well, Claudine, from a medical standpoint, I mean, why is that? Why are we still so afraid to talk about it?
Well, doctors don't know much about it. They get very, very little training on menopause itself. And even the doctors who do focus on it, they have had to find specialized training. So they don't know a lot in general. But I feel like in our culture, there is a very negative perception of aging in general, right? There's this unspoken pressure to stay young. And so when you talk about menopause, it's like, oh, well, you're not young anymore, right? You're not. And it's almost like, unlike some cultures, like I think of the Japanese culture where the elders are held in high esteem. In our culture, it's all about being young, right? So when you talk about menopause, you're automatically saying, oh, well, I'm older now. So there's that negative connotation.
So, Lena, are you finding that to be true? Are you finding it's a little difficult to find support and any
Yes,
kind of information?
yes. There's nobody wants to speak about it. Like when you bring up the topic, like if I bring it up with my friends, they're like, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, well, are you going through it? And they're like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm finding that a lot.
Okay. So, what was your
Right.
experience, or I know you said you were going through it when I was reaching out for someone to come on and talk about it. You said you were actually experiencing it now. So what was your first experience like? When did you realize, crap, this is menopause?
The first time I realized it, I woke up at 3 a.m. and I thought I was on fire. I literally thought the house was on fire and I was on fire, but there was no fire. And I sat up and I thought, what is going on? I stumbled down the stairs and I got to the bathroom and I actually vomited in the toilet, which I'm 49. I've never vomited in my life. Believe it or not, I've just never have. So it was very strange for me to be at the toilet vomiting and then feeling like I was on fire. And I laid on the floor and I thought, what is going on? I must have food poisoning. I must be sick. And it took me a minute and I went, oh, I'm going, this is the start. And that was like a year and a half ago. It's been going for a while.
Yay, year and a half. Maybe I'm grateful that I was like instant.
Lucky you.
So I know two of you have at least gone through it or are going through it. Claudine, where are you at in the journey?
I'm still in the perimenopause, and Lena, I'm not sure if you're experiencing, because menopause is when you have not had your period for 12 months. So it kind of depends where you are. And there, perimenopause is that transition where things get a little wonky, like your periods are not as consistent as they were. You have more weight gain around the middle. That's the hot flashes, the night sweats, the vaginal dryness, the mood swings, the migraines. And
Yeah.
I will say to your question, Melody Ann, about like, when did I have this like realization around what's going on with menopause? It really came from my clients because they would come to me and they're like, I feel this, I feel this, I feel this. And my doctor's telling me everything's normal. I don't understand. Like they're being gaslit. Is it gaslit or gaslighted? I'm not sure.
I don't
But they're being that
know.
I by their doctors and they're because again, the medical community doctors are not really trained on this. This is like a teeny tiny percentage of everything they're taught, right? They're women's health in general is not huge, but this section of it is teeny tiny. So they don't know much. So you come to them and they're either going to say, you're fine, your blood work's fine, everything's normal, or they're going to say, well, here, take some hormones. And there are different perspectives on each. But the thing that I noticed most was the women coming to me saying, I'm not being believed. I'm having this experience and I'm being told I'm not having this experience. And that's where I got involved because I'm like, this is not right. It's absolutely not right.
So Mary, one of the things I love about you is like I said, you're Miss Arkansas, Senior America. You were a senior Olympian. You're an actress now. So, and you're how old again? You're like 70 something.
Well, on December the 15th, I'll be 72.
So most people would be expecting you to be like staying home and sitting in your rocking chair or, drinking your tea or whatever, and you're out there doing all this stuff. How did going into menopause at all affect how you looked at getting older, at aging?
No, I've always been someone that just take it by the horns and just deal with it. But I'm a little bit older than than the other guests on here. And y'all remember Suzanne Summers? Okay. When I was in my 50s and some of this started going on, and I started having vaginal dryness, and I explain it to people that don't know as like having a tampon hanging halfway out of you 24/7. It's so uncomfortable, and having absolutely no sensation in your genitals. You could, I want to get frank here, you could masturbate all day and rub yourself raw and never feel anything. Oh, it's just horrible. I got one of her books and I went to my primary care doctor at the time and I marked all of the tests that I wanted, and she was great. And she ordered all of these tests. She didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but we were going to follow something because I was not going to put up with just having no sex life, no feeling horrible and hurting all of the time. So I got with her, and I'll fast forward, and she retired. I got some help from some it wasn't prescribed hormones, but I went to a naturopathic, I think I pronounced that right, doctor, and got some like herbs and stuff. And then I got with another doctor and she almost killed me. She was doing the pellets, and my husband now, we were seeing each other at the time, and we both did pellets, and it was a wild ride. He got a horrible infection, and then she kicked us out of her practice because we started asking a lot of questions, and we both got letters telling us we couldn't come back. So I got with another physician, and she was doing the hormones and the compounded hormones. And I kept asking questions and questions, and she kicked me out of her practice too because she didn't want to answer questions because she didn't know what the answers were. And I finally got in with the primary care physician that I have now, and she did blood work, and I'm taking compounded hormones, and things are so much better. Of course, we go through a little bit of a roller coaster because your body fluctuates and you have to change the hormones, and you'll have breakthrough bleeding and you have to readjust. But I feel human. It's been a horrible ride. And like you said, nobody talks about it. The doctors don't know anything about it, pat you on the head and go, well, you're just getting older. But I try to be open with people, and especially like my hairdresser is in her 30s, and I'm telling her now what to be looking for because you don't know when it's going to hit you.
I remember they used to hang a note on my office door that said "Enter at your own risk." But they something about because I was on the hormone patch for a while before I realized that that was not a good idea. And they used to, if I would forget to put it on, you could tell because I would be like, I'll be honest, I was like the bitch from hell. Okay. So they would hang a note on my office door that said patchless, enter at your own risk. So
I want to say something here because I've been thinking about this since we were going to do this podcast. People would not be laughed at if they were having postpartum depression. People would not make fun. You wouldn't make light of yourself, even. You wouldn't make light of yourself or other people if you were having fertility problems. But it seems like because we're older women and people do not want, and the medical community, to address this issue with older women, society wants us to laugh about it. And it's not anything to be laughed about. It's a serious condition that every woman is going to face unless she dies before it happens.
well, after listening to Sherry's experience, Claudine, I have some real questions about the medical aspect of it. How does functional medicine approach menopause differently from conventional medicine, which is basically they don't deal with it at all if they don't have to?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the things that women go through when they're going through menopause are common but not normal, right? And there are a lot of reasons for this. For example, all of those things that we talked about, the hot flashes, the vaginal dryness, increased UTIs, not sleeping, like all the things you think of when you think of menopause. Everybody seems like everybody who's going through menopause has them, right? So they're common. But if your body is if all your systems in your body are functioning properly, you shouldn't actually have those symptoms. So it's a sign that there's something else going on in your body. So when we're doing functional medicine, we're looking at the body holistically. We're looking at the gut function, which has a huge impact on hormones. We're looking at immune system. We're looking at, beyond the estrogen and progesterone, although we do look at those as well. Because as Sherry had mentioned, at one point she'd had a naturopath give her things that were like hormones, but not hormones, because there are things that you can do before. And I'm not saying that people don't want to go to hormones eventually, but it's good to figure out, to kind of clean out the other stuff first, see where your body is. Like, do you need the hormones, or can you get your body to function the way it's supposed to without them? If you do end up getting hormones, we recommend bioidentical hormones because they react much better to your body than just regular HRT, which is made from horse's urine, right? And it doesn't react to your body as well. So to answer your question, it is a whole person approach to menopause, looking at root causes of the systems and supporting your body's natural healing process so that menopause doesn't become this cluster of symptoms to get through. It becomes a transition to the next phase of your life.
So you mean and tell me if I had known you like 30 something years ago, I wouldn't have had to go through all of this? You could have told me right up front what the problem was and we could have fixed it. Oh my goodness.
Well, what you went through is especially difficult because, as you said, you had surgical menopause. So your body had
Mhm.
no time for a transition. It was just like, boom, everything's taken out. You got to go. And your body's like, what just happened? Right?
Mhm.
Because it's used to functioning a certain way. And now all of a sudden you've taken away all of its tools.
And of course, as we know, hysterectomies were done on women because they were hysterical. So if we take out all of her female organs, it'll take care of her being hysterical, and which just made everything worse.
And last I heard, that is the number one surgery for adult women in the US.
I don't doubt it's still that way. I know I personally take the bioidentical hormones. And like I said, I my sister called me. She's a little bit older than I am, but like you said, everybody's journey, and I don't call it menopause, I call it menostop. Because it's like, oh, and she's like, what's wrong with me? And she was describing all of these horrible vaginal dryness symptoms. And I said, you have vaginal dryness. You need to go talk to her doctor, and find out. She can get you on some hormones. And I was successful in getting her in with my doctor, who was not taking any new patients anymore, because her doctor didn't know how to deal with it at all. He just kept treating her for I believe it was a UTI, and he
Mm.
didn't have a clue. And of course, when I started this, like I said, doctors didn't have a clue, and they did not want to be questioned about it.
Well, and
Well,
the UTI thing is because when our body, the
Uh-huh.
level of estrogen goes down, estrogen actually keeps a good bacteria in our vaginal microbiome going, and that prevents UTIs. So when you have lower estrogen, you can have more UTIs. And it's a shame, right, that
Mhm.
her doctor does not know this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not hard information to find out, right?
Exactly. But like I said, a few years back, like I said, I'm fixing to be 72. And so, the only recourse I had was Suzanne Summers' book to begin with. And there were no doctors in the Fort Smith area at that time that were dealing with anything hormonal. And here's another caveat to that. A lot of times when the woman is going through menopause, her partner, who may be close in age to her, is going through erectile dysfunction. And so you have the perfect storm. He can't get an erection, and she can't deal with penetration because of the thinning. And I told my husband, and I were talking here recently, and I said, it's no wonder couples just watch television and eat.
well, I am very grateful for the fact that yes, it was instant, but I had cancer and it was spreading, so I had no choice. So I am grateful for the hysterectomy, and I am grateful that once I figured out what was going on and started reading, I am an avid researcher and reader, so I managed to get through it after a while, and I've had no problems since then. I'm pretty good. So I am very grateful, but I know there's a lot of women out there that aren't. So Claudine, could you give us some tips that women can implement to help ease this transition?
Absolutely. Well, some of them are going to seem kind of obvious. Like, for example, we want to nourish our bodies, right? One of the things that happens as we go through perimenopause and menopause is our body isn't as good at compensating for us, right? We have gotten to a level of being able to stay up all night and caffeinate the next day, or we've been able to handle certain stressors. When we go through this period of our lives, we become less resilient to stress, right? So first of all, you need to have proper nutrition. And the thing that I see with a lot of my clients is they aren't eating enough, because another sign of perimenopause and menopause is that you start to gain weight because you become more insulin resistant. So then they stop eating, right? So you need to get your good nutrition, make sure it's whole foods, plenty of fiber, fruits and veggies, and healthy fats are super important, because fat is the precursor to all hormones. All hormones start with a cholesterol compound. So if you don't have enough healthy fat, you're not going to have enough hormones. You're also not going to have enough brain power because your brain, think about your brain, it's mostly fat. And we tend to have more anxiety and depression when we are going through this period of life because again, your body is less resilient. So we want to make sure we support those systems with healthy foods. That's tip number one. Tip number two is to make stress release. I don't call it stress management. I call it stress release a non-negotiable for you. Because as I mentioned, your body is less able to handle. If you think of your stress response as a glass with water in it, let's use my glass here with water in it. If your water level was down here before, you could take a few stressors before it overflows. But now it's up here. It's almost at the top. So we need to reduce that every day, doing something for yourself every day to release stress. And that could be taking an Epsom salt bath, which is magnesium, right? Absorbing magnesium through your skin. So even if you have gut issues, you can get that good calming magnesium, which helps 500 different enzymatic reactions in the body happen. Whether it's just deep breathing, whether it's doing meditation, yoga, an infrared sauna blanket, doing one thing for yourself every day. And the third thing is just to ask for help, right? So surround yourself with supportive people, listen to a podcast like this, get your tribe. If you want to get functional medicine testing, find a functional medicine practitioner or even a menopause coach. Just don't do it alone because you really want to have some people around you who can lift you up and give you that support.
Okay, what is a menopause coach? That's a new one on me. I have never heard that term before.
There are some people, and actually I know of one if you need a referral, but there are some people that are specifically, that's their job is to help coach you through this process. So, it's interesting that in a previous conversation, Melody, and you and I talked about what do we do at work, right? Like how can workplaces make it more accessible for women who have menopause? Menopause coaches actually help teach people how to have that conversation with their bosses, how to have those conversations with your workplace, how to have the conversation with your spouse. This is what I'm going through. This is what I need from you. So they help that you through that transition.
That's totally new to me. I've never heard of anything like that. That's amazing to me, actually, how helpful that would have been because, like I said, most of us are clueless. So that would have been awesome. We do. If you would please send me her information so I can put it in the program notes. There may be women out there that are sitting out there going, menopause coach, I need one of those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know we talked about how it made you think about aging, getting older, but what message, and especially you, Sherry, because you're someone who embodies strength and grace. You're Miss Senior America and you're a senior Olympian. So, that's strength and grace right there. What message do you have for women who are afraid of menopause? Because I do think, maybe I'm wrong, and Claudine can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sometimes our fear of things make things worse.
Of course it does. Of course, I think a lot of it has to do with just your general who you are as a person. Some people meet things head on and just go with it, and then there are other people that are in denial. Myself, I'm like you. I'm going to research whatever I can and find out what I need to do. And I encourage one as the Senior America pageant. One of our goals is to dispel the myths of aging. And a lot of people, I think, while they're still young, they start talking about, oh, I'm just getting older. Well, we're just kind of told to accept these pains and all these different things. And you shouldn't accept them. You should find out, just like the doctor was talking about, check your diet. Sugar is killing us. There's sugar in everything anymore. People think they've eliminated sugar, but they haven't eliminated sugar. And to me, from my research and my own health, I have found that cutting out all of those carbs is very beneficial to your health.
Okay. I had a conversation, well, I was kind of part of a conversation the other day, and I don't know, maybe we need to bring this back. I don't know, but a woman, she was saying that someone that she knew called her an old crone, meaning it as an insult. And
Oh,
she was
sure.
like, thank you, because back in the day, crones were wise women. They weren't, it was not the derogatory term that it was today, or that it is today. And she was explaining that, back then, these women were the women that surrounded the younger women and helped them through this. And I don't know, maybe we need to bring back the crone. I'm for it. I'm a crone. Okay. I'm old and I think I'm kind of wise. But I don't know, maybe I don't know, how do we do that? How do we bring back that women supporting women through all these, not just menopause, but through all the changes that we go through in our lives? Because there's a lot, let's be real. How do we bring that back? Anybody? Lena, you're going through this. How could you ask someone to be there for you? And I've been through it, Sherry's been through it. How could we help you? How can we help you face this and get through it?
I don't, I'm gonna be real honest. I don't know if there is any kind of help. I don't mean to be negative, but it just doesn't seem, the only person really in my life right now is my auntie. We're 5 years apart. And she is what I call coming to the end of the road for her menopause. And I'm probably at the very beginning, getting to the middle of the road. And she's, so I'm behind her. And every day I message her and she'll message me back. So I think that as women, we have to find the one person, because I don't feel like there's very many that want to do things as a group or to support as a group, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm only getting support from one person, and that's good enough for me to be able to message her. Like today, I said, everything tastes like bacon. And I've been a vegetarian since 1982. I have not eaten meat since 1982. And everything tastes like bacon. Give me a Jolly Rancher, and I'll tell you it's the best bacon I've ever had. And I'm tired of eating because anything I eat tastes like bacon or olives. Olives and I hate olives. So just trying to eat just anything, a banana, and it tastes like bacon. And I'm like, I don't want to eat. So I'm losing weight. I have lost a lot of weight because everything tastes like bacon. Blech.
Okay, Claudine, I'm coming back to you because that one's a weird one. How in the heck is there a medical reason why things are tasting like bacon?
That is the first time I've heard that. But typically when you have strange smells or something going on, it's usually a liver or gallbladder issue where you need help with detoxing more. And I don't mean detoxing like, oh, I'm gonna go on a juice cleanse. I mean like doing your Epsom salt baths, doing your castor oil packs, doing your sauna blanket. If you have a sauna, that's great. Like something that will help clear out your liver and your gallbladder, because those organs are super important to the functioning of all of our systems. And because we are already surrounded by so many toxins, it's really important for us to maintain them.
I gotta hand it to you. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That's a new symptom. I've never heard that.
Well, I'm just a strange person. I have a friend that's a Reiki master, and about 10 years ago, I was having the worst problems with my knees. I really just couldn't walk. Maybe it was 15 years ago, so around about, and she did some Reiki on my knees, and it smelled like poo. I'm not gonna lie. And she thought that I passed gas, and then we realized that it was the sludge, the whatever it was, the toxins literally coming out of my body. And then the second session, it went to smelling like roses, and it went away. So I have done a lot of the things that you were talking about, Claudine. But it's been a couple months, so it's probably time for me to go to doing that again because I'm tired of bacon.
Get a tune up.
Yeah, I need a tune-up, an oil change.
Okay, so I have a question for all of you because Claudine mentioned that, well, we all know we have the hot flashes, which can happen at any time. And you just, I mean, I was just dripping. I could be perfectly fine, and the next minute I'm just dripping wet. And it always seemed to happen at the most inconvenient, inappropriate times. And you're starting to gain weight and all the other things. And we just feel big and fat and sloppy. And how can we redefine confidence? How can we find confidence in ourselves, and how can we feel beautiful again when we're sweating like a stuck pig and we're getting to be as big as a pig? How do we fix that? How do we still feel beautiful and confident? And
Well, I did this once again. Everybody's symptoms are their own. I didn't have the hot flashes,
really, oh, I so
really,
envy.
and um, I have not experienced. I experienced a little bit of the middle spread, but basically, I don't have that. Like I said, I jumped on everything fairly early, reading everything I could get my hands on. Got on the bioidentical hormones, and just like I think with menopause, it's going to have to be like the younger women think nothing about talking about their periods now. Um, the younger men are accepting that more. And I think that we, as the menopausal era, we need to normalize it instead of making it something taboo. And like I said a while ago, not normalize it that it's a, oh, she's going through, oh, granny, and not normalizing it like that, but just normalizing it that, half of the population is a woman, and every woman, unless she dies beforehand, is going to go through what we call menopause. And it's a time in life that, I mean, there's some freedom with it, that you don't have the monthly or bi-monthly, or as we all know with having periods, it's not all you're not always regular, and you don't have the fear of pregnancy anymore. But then you have the vaginal dryness, and you have other symptoms to deal with, and we just need to normalize that. And when we hear women, kind of laughing, how do you go? We just need to step up and say, okay, this is just part of this, and here is something that you can do. You don't have to suffer with this. But I think it's
You
up to
absolutely,
us as women to normalize it.
well, and you're so right when you say we don't have to suffer through it, because a lot of the symptoms Melody Ann was describing, like the hot flashes, the
Mm-hmm.
spread around the middle, those are preventable if you catch them early enough. Part of the problem is when I see clients, it's usually something that's been festering for 20 years.
Sure.
And then it's like, oh, all of a sudden my body isn't able to handle this level of it, like this additional stressor called menopause, like with my hormones fluctuating. And now it's becoming a full blown problem. I know you mentioned sugar earlier and erectile dysfunction, which actually go together, as you mentioned, because there's several books now out about blood sugar regulation and how blood sugar dysregulation is the root of all chronic disease.
Yep.
Right. And you have this constant blood sugar up and down, which happens when we eat very frequently. We happen to eat a lot of carbs. It's just kind of in, we crave carbs. So humans in general just they gravitate towards them. But having that over and over again causes things like erectile dysfunction, PCOS, infertility, cancer. It causes so many different things. So if we're looking at our health earlier, so even if you have people listening to this podcast who aren't in menopause, if they're in their 30s, if they're in their 20s, there's so many things they can do now to look at their health to prevent going through all these symptoms. And even women who are in their late 40s, early 50s who are experiencing the perimenopausal symptoms that we were talking about, there are things they can do. They can get the testing. Is it their gut? that's having an issue? Do they have mold toxicity? Do they have mineral imbalances? A lot of some of those things that you were talking about, Melody Ann, are you don't have the right minerals. Your body just cannot do things if you do not have enough calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and all the rest, right? So there are definitely ways to address it if you find somebody who knows. Who knows?
But who would you tell people to go to? Because I'm at a loss here. Most doctors do not know how to check for minerals and mold toxicity and all of those things that you just named there. They are, as you stated, most doctors do not know how to deal with the menopause. They don't know how to deal with nutrition. I was told at one time that doctors get one semester in nutrition, and basically they're taught how to write prescriptions to treat symptoms and not the root cause. So
Yeah.
who would you go to get your minerals checked and all of those things? Because I would be interested in that. And would insurance cover it? That's another drawback when you're on Social Security. If your insurance is not going to cover it, you don't have the money to just pay out of pocket for a lot of tests.
The only people I know who do it are functional medicine practitioners,
Okay. Are there
right?
any in the Fort Smith area?
It doesn't matter. They all work online.
They're all online. They don't even have offices.
Yeah, so I work with people all over the world. So I have clients in Europe, Australia, all over the US, Canada. It doesn't matter because you ship them a test, they fill it up with whatever you want them to fill it up with, and they send it back.
Okay.
So,
And does insurance cover that? And what is the cost?
well, the problem, and actually, there's a really good book if you want to link this. I have it somewhere, but it's called it's by Dr. Casey Means. It's called Good Energy, and it talks about why the traditional medical system is not set up to prevent issues. They
Right.
are only set up to respond when you're in a life-threatening, issue. And they don't want to fix you. They just want to give you a drug or a surgery because it's actually more lucrative for them if you come back.
Yeah.
Right. So the insurance companies are not set up to help you get better. They're just set up to give you a band-aid. Right.
Exactly.
So functional medicine, unfortunately, although a lot of people who have HSAs or FSAs, health spending accounts, or can't remember what FSA stands for, flex spending account, they
Social
can use
Security
those.
people don't have that.
It's interesting because my mom is in Medicare and she's actually trying to get the insurance companies to cover some of this stuff. And if we have a big enough movement, we can, right? Because I think it's critical
My
for the health of.
bioidentical hormones are not covered. Every 3 months, it costs me about around $600 out of pocket. But I cannot function without them.
It just doesn't seem right somehow. We need to have a whole big podcast about the health industry and insurance.
It's not right. It's not right.
So how, okay, say somebody wanted to have their minerals checked. How much would a test like that cost?
So the test, it depends on how somebody structures it, because some people structure their programs to include, you don't want just the test, right? You also want to know what it means. If I can show you a test, I have one around here somewhere. I can show you a test, but it's like a bunch of bar graphs. You're gonna be like, what does this mean?
Well, it would be all inclusive. I guess I assumed that if I had the test, that somebody would tell me what the test results meant.
So it probably depends, because a lot of functional medicine practitioners don't just want to give you a test and the results and send you on your way, because you don't tend to get results. But if I were to just like ballpark it for you, like what does a typical, and this is going to be a generalization based on the people I know, for just that mineral test, I mean, probably $400 for the
Yeah,
test.
see, that's such a drawback to anybody out of pocket to spend $400 for a mineral test, and then what was an enzyme test, and then all of these, and then
Yeah, it's a shame that you can't get it covered. But some people, like, I work with people who have insomnia as well, and it's like you can't sleep. You're going to do whatever you can to get it fixed. A lot of people have payment plans, so you can pay it over time. You don't have to have that expense come out of pocket all at once. But it's like when it comes to your health, it's like how important it's usually when people come to us, they are very sick, right? They're at the point where it's like, I'm going to pay for it because I need to get better, and the traditional medical community is not helping me. So, and some people are just more interested in health in general, and they're like, I'm going to figure it out. So it really depends on how interested you are in that.
Well, I'll disagree on that because not only how interested, but if you can't live and you don't have the money to pay that, you're interested in your health, but you just literally can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, payment plans for
And
people
when
who,
you're on a fixed income with Social Security, that just, and I'm wanting to know this information for people that I talk with that are on Social Security and help to point them in the right direction. I know what they'd say. What? There's no way I can afford to do that.
Well, unfortunately, that is a fact of life as you get older. I watched my mom, because we grew up pretty poor, and yeah, I watched my mom many days choose between food for the family or the medication she needed to maintain her health, and she always chose food, and it was probably not the best decision, but
It's probably best if we only ate once a day so our blood sugar would stay stable.
so I heard you say that you share the information with your other ladies.
Mhm.
I know you all have, I'm going to call it a platform, I guess, because you, Sherry, run the pageant now, the Arkansas Miss Senior America pageant. You kind of run that. And Lena, you're an artist. And Claudine, you are, a functional medical practitioner. How can you guys, or how can you use your platforms, your professions to inspire and empower women that are going through this stage of life? How can we do what we need to do to make people understand that yes, the tests we need should be covered by insurance. The doctors should be taught how to help us. The things that we need should be readily accessible. How do we fix this? You all have a platform. How can we use it to fix this?
well, there is a bit of a movement happening right now
Yeah.
with Dr. Casey Means is the person I mentioned. She was on a panel that spoke to Congress sometime in late October, I believe it was, of different practitioners across the spectrum talking about why our medical system isn't a wellness care, it is a sickness care. So there is definitely some momentum. I mean, I'm shouting it from the rafters every day. Whether the algorithm picks it up, I don't know. But all we can do is continue to share and continue to talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more the awareness grows.
What about you, Lena? How can your art, because that's how can you use your art maybe to help?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, because for me, art encompasses a lot of things. So I'm a theater geek, love theater, and since I live way out in the boonies, there's no opportunity for anything for me. So I kind of created my own show, and I am creating a character based on menopause, and she is going to be talking about what she's going through, and it's going to be one of my characters on the show, and it's going to be I know Sherry doesn't like to make fun and stuff, but that is how I handle life, is poking fun at myself and at things that are happening in my life, and people can relate to it. And so the show that I've been doing has been a lot of slapstick and a lot of funny stuff, and I've been adding all these characters, and a lot of people can relate, and they laugh and they enjoy it. And so I think I'm going to do a little bit, with that, with my little show. But as far as art is concerned, I've seen other artists, just doing paintings about how they're feeling going through the menopause and sharing the artwork with others.
You were talking about this movement that you're with. Is there like a Facebook group? How would I get involved with this group of people that are contacting our leaders?
I'm not actually part of the movement. I follow Dr. Casey Means.
Doctor, say it again.
Casey, Casey.
Okay.
Means, Means. She's the one who wrote the book Good Energy, which I have around here somewhere. Oh, here, I'll show you the book. And so she posts on Instagram and various other channels. Here's her book, Good Energy. I
And
believe her brother who co-wrote the book, he is working with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who may be involved in the health and wellness sphere coming up. We'll see.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are also several, we were talking about community earlier, there are several Facebook groups about menopause. So for people who want a community, Lena, if this is something that interests you, there are lots of Facebook groups for women who are dealing with things that you're dealing with as well. And so that's that community, that support, just women helping women.
Good to know.
Like I said, I can't say I'm dealing with it because I have it under control, but a place where I could point other women to that are back where I was 15, 20 years ago and dealing with it. Because like I said, where I am now, I'm in a stable part. I know what I need and what I need to eat, and I put in the work to get there. And I know that a lot of times when I talk to women, they don't want to accept that there's anything they need to change in their life to make themselves better.
Mm.
They want to continue to eat what they're eating and just think that if they just ignore it, it'll go away. And it doesn't.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
as you know, it gets worse if you don't address it.
Yeah, I hate to tell them. Ignoring it does not make it better. Okay.
I want to ignore it.
We'd all just love to ignore any problems in our life. Just ignore it. Don't talk about it. It'll go away.
I want to so bad.
And we need to educate men.
Yes.
We need
Amen.
to educate them because it's like, oh, I'll just stay away from her. Well, that's not what we need. We need somebody to come along beside us. You may not understand what's going on right now, but I'm not something like a hot stove and you just need to, oh, let me just get away from her. That just makes us feel worse. So, what are your recommendations on how we can educate the men, not only in our lives, but in society, that it's don't make fun of us. We're already, like you talked about, which I didn't experience, the hot flashes and you're drenched. You don't need somebody to make light of it. You need somebody to have a little compassion for you.
Well, yeah, that just reminds me, like I said, they would actually hang a sticky note on my door because there was no escaping the fact that I had not put my little hormone patch on in a couple of days because I was not pleasant to be around. Okay. I freely admit it. I had the whole mood swings and it was ugly.
Mhm.
But instead of putting the little sign on the door and leaving me in my office by myself, yes, it would have been great. How can we have this conversation? How can we educate? Because let's face it, the workplaces are still predominantly male, they're male run. How can we educate men, our husbands, our fathers, our brothers, our bosses, our coworkers? How do we educate them to support us, not laugh at us
Or
or
run away.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it comes down to having the courage to have the conversation,
Mhm.
right? And there are a ton of influencers out there now. Like I'll send my husband these little reels. They're on Instagram, because it's like they make them cute and funny, but it gets the point across, right?
Yeah.
Like your wife needs this, and this. And my husband's the sweetest heart. He's
Right.
wonderful. But I want to send this to some of my friends' husbands too.
But here's the generational thing. Women my age, they don't do the Instagram and stuff. There may be a lot out there, but they don't know how to access.
Oh gosh, some do. My mom's 78 and she sends me Instagram reels all the time.
Well, I'm just saying though, there are a lot that don't. So where do you send them?
I mean, I would probably, if it was someone that I wanted to send stuff to, I would just put her on Instagram and show her how. But you can email these things. I mean, that's just an example, right? Like I happen to like Instagram. there are plenty of different opportunities for people. I think what it comes down to, though, the first thing is being able to speak your truth,
Mhm.
right? And not really caring how it sounds to people, because maybe some people will be offended. Maybe some people aren't going to want to talk about it. Too bad. It's a fact of life. As you mentioned, Sherry, half of the population goes through this
Yes.
at some point or another. So I don't think it should be a taboo subject. And in my little bubble, it's not. Like, I talk about this stuff all day long.
Right.
So, but I think if for women who need that support, they can find a local group, they can find an online group, they can speak to, anyone who they trust, a loved one, a friend, a brother, a sister, whoever, and get that support that they need in order to feel that confidence.
It's
So
hard.
go ahead, Sharon or Lena.
I said it's just hard because, once again, just going from women that I'm around, a lot of them just have their husbands, and they really don't have an outside type group, and they've been brought up to ignore it. Go away. Just go away. And
In this podcast, Sherry.
Then I'm to this podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah. And that's what I was, if we could get some addresses or websites or something to throw up, so when they come onto the podcast, they can go to those different sites and get more information. Maybe have something, how to talk to my husband about what I'm going through, how to talk to my employer about what women, maybe not so much but what women are going through. That's just like, boys used to, if a girl was on her period and she stood up and she had blood all over her, all the boys just laughed. I don't think that's so much anymore, but because it's become more normalized for boys to be more accepting of, I don't want to call it issues, of the lives of girls. And I think that's what we need to do with menopause. We need to be educating the boys and the men in our lives.
And there's a great resource called the International Menopause Society. It's the imsociety.org website. So if anyone needs resources, it even has listings of doctors that are skilled in menopause care. So you could always send someone there.
imsociety.org.
Yeah, it stands for International Menopause Society.
Okay.
Great. I'll put that link in the program notes too, because that's good to know. I had not heard of that. That's great. But yeah, like you're saying that we need to educate. What about my mother didn't really help me when I started my period, but my grandmother was there. She was Czech, and that's it's a whole different culture, I guess. They just deal with things differently, and she was there. And she explained to me what was going on, and it was totally normal, and no, I wasn't going to bleed to death, and it was fine. And how do we get back to that? I've been in situations. I work with some nonprofits, and I've been in situations where mothers, you can tell they're very uncomfortable talking about things with their daughters or their sons. I've actually had them call me, call the hotline or whatever where I was working and be like, "Can you talk to my son? Can you talk to my daughter?" And I'm like, "No, that's not my job. That's your job." So how do we encourage that, to get mothers to be talking to their daughters and their sons and explaining everything that they need to know? How can they have meaningful conversations again about menopause, about menstrual cycles, about aging, about everything? How does that happen?
And not only mothers, but fathers need to be talking to their sons and daughters, and make the men a part of all of this. That's the challenge that I see.
I will say it starts with education of that person first. How can they explain to their daughter what's going on if they don't understand it themselves. And I do have hope in the younger generation because they they do use social media and the internet and that ethos, that internet sphere for gathering information, right? You're talking about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of those things. They use it to get the information and then
Mhm.
they build community around that. So I have hope that they will have the information to pass on to the next generation because they will Google anything. My 13-year-old son, I asked him a question, so it's like, let me put it in Google.
Mhm.
But I don't know if it would be nice if we had that community that you're talking about, Melody Ann, where you're like in person. That I don't know if is it coming back? I'm not sure. It may have shifted, it may have changed.
I tell
And
my daughter everything. She's 25, and I told her my mom told me nothing, and I mean nothing. So she's 25, and I tell her everything. It's like TMI city, and she loves it. I'm like literally, she's like, tell me more, because she wants to know what she's going to be facing in 25 years. And I
and
think it's important as women, we should be telling our daughters and our sons. I do have a 5-year-old son. Yes, I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. Oh gosh, that's a story. But I plan on being very vocal with him too about what mommy has gone through and what, I do tell him now, and he's 5. Hey, my mama's mood. Woo, mama got to go outside. And I let him know like I need support even from my 5-year-old. And he
you,
gets he's
I just
cute.
had a thought, and I know, and I'm not condemning at all. When you say, "Oh, Mama, I got to go outside,"
Yeah.
should we go past that and say, "Mother's hormones are out of balance right now, and so I'm getting too hot, and so it's nothing to be scared about. But I just have to go. It's like I've exercised too much, and I've just got to cool off." But explain that my hormones are fluctuating and that's just something within my body. Because I think
Yes.
a lot of times maybe we just don't explain enough.
I tell him that mommy's going through some things and my body's changing, and he doesn't quite get it, but I'm letting him know. And
Yeah.
I think it's important at a young age that they understand that, like, even when my daughter was very young, I let her know right away what a period was. She knew right around the age of 6 because she found my pads and my tampons. Like, what is this? We
Mhm.
just talked about it.
Yeah.
And we've been like that. And I love that I can tell her anything. And
Right.
and she wants to know. And I think that's a big problem now. I think people don't talk about it, and these girls want to know. She wants to
And,
know.
you
She
know,
does.
and we can tell by some things going on in society with the big, "Oh my gosh, they're putting tampons in the boys' bathrooms." As there's still society has that taboo. But it's not for the boys. It's to help out a girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you think it's the culture difference? Because like I said, my grandmother was Czech. She didn't speak much. Well, she didn't speak any English, to be honest. But to her, it was not a taboo subject. She was there. She explained it. She told me what was happening. Um, and I've seen that from women in other countries. It's perfectly natural. I mean, I met women when I was in the military that it was perfectly fine. They would discuss things that over here you would not sit down to have coffee with your best friend and discuss these topics, and they were talking about them with total stranger, right? So
I
why
have,
why the
yeah,
cultural difference, do you think?
I have wondered. I know in the Christian community and in the Jewish community, a woman on her period was considered unclean and dirty. And I think that that's still ongoing, those teachings of a woman being unclean.
I think there's a little more to it than that because Baba was deeply Christian. She was you didn't get any more Catholic than my grandmother. Okay. I'm sorry.
But I think even Catholicism and what's termed Christianity are two totally different spheres, also.
maybe I don't know, but like I
Yeah.
said, I've just seen it. I've seen it in so many women from other cultures that are just, this is totally normal. This is fine. Let's talk about this. And then you come here and it's like, oh my gosh, don't talk about that. That's horrible.
Well, I mean, you've got, celebrities, it's all these influencing things that, magazines and TV and all. I feel like in the United States, it's so glamour, glamour, glamour. Let's all be Gucci. But really, we're like a third world country, really, when you think about it. I mean, so many people are poor and homeless, can't even eat, and it's like, oh, we have to put this perception on because I've traveled. I've been to Egypt and Mexico and people there are just like they talk about everything like you say. It's nothing really taboo there. Not really. I mean, they talk about whatever. Like my Hispanic grandmother would talk about whatever. My German grandmother speak about whatever. But my
What
mom
about
didn't. That was
what about the
strange.
men? What about the men?
Never.
Were they accepting of that? But women would talk amongst themselves,
Yes.
but it was still kept within the female community.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And
That's,
my husband would never, I've tried to talk to him about it. He goes, that's women's stuff. That's
yeah.
women's stuff.
That's
Are
where
you
the that's
serious?
yeah.
Oh,
That's where the bridge needs to be built.
yes. And I'm like, okay, I get that's women's stuff, but guess what? You married to a woman. Guess what? You're here. And if you don't want to be married to this, then yeah, I suggest you move on because I'm gonna be sitting here, doing this for a while. I'll be
Don't make
fanning
fun
myself.
of them.
Ladies, I have a question for each of you, okay? What do you hope? And I know we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about trying to educate people in general. We've talked about trying to create communities. We got some good tips from Claudine about how to actually deal with some of the symptoms. I've got some links now that I'm going to put in the program notes to where we can get more information if we need it. But what do you hope that the next generation of women, the ones that are coming behind us, what do you hope that they're going to understand or experience differently about menopause? And let's start with Claudine.
Well, I hope the next generation will see menopause not as something to fear, but as just another phase of life, because I believe they will have more access to better education, more resources, more support that will help them navigate this change. And it's all it is a change. And as you said earlier, sometimes change is scary, but if you know what's happening, it doesn't need to be scary. And I hope they'll feel empowered to speak up, to share their stories, and to fan the care. That is my hope.
Okay. Sherry, what about you?
Well, I was thinking when she was talking there, when we go into puberty, our bodies change. We develop breasts, our hips start widening, and our bodies change. And when we begin to enter into menopause, we once again go through bodily changes. Uh, your breasts can begin to sag. Your skin becomes saggy because you get more wrinkles because you're losing estrogen and different hormones and collagen. And that I wish we could be like Benjamin Button. I wish we could age backward because we're used to looking good and having firm skin and like we talked about, which should be bad. You can eat what you want and stay up late and all of that, and nothing affects the way you look. And then all of a sudden, anything you do, there's more wrinkles, there's more saggy skin. And I know at 72, I'm dealing with loose skin. And, I'm doing everything that I know to do. But sometimes you get to the point where you just have to cover it up. And I'll just admit it, it's a sadness to me to not have because I'm into fitness and have been all of my life and not be able to regain what I had. That is a sadness to me.
Lena, what about you?
I just want to say you look really good, Sherry.
Everything's covered up.
You look really good. I just want to say I hope that the generation behind me, like my daughter, I just hope that she's not embarrassed by going through the change when she gets there, and that she doesn't have any kind of regret about getting older because it's a privilege that many of us will never get to. And I feel it's a privilege that I've gotten. I'm alive. I'm here. Like that's awesome. And I'm kind of freaked out about going through it, no lie, but I'm excited about it because I'm like, wow, I've made it to this point, and so many people didn't get a chance to even get to this point in life. And like I've had friends pass and in their 30s, and it makes me sad. So that's what I hope for, is that there's no embarrassment or regrets of getting older or having this, the thing on the neck. I call it the gobble gobble that's starting to form. I'm like, oh gosh. But I just don't want her feeling like that makes her less of, because that doesn't define us. And society makes it define, but I don't want her to feel that.
Something just occurred to me. We're talking about those other cultures. A lot of cultures have respect for elderly. They have them in high esteem, and they don't look at their outward aging of their skin and maybe their lack of ability to sprint 50 meters or whatever. They hold their older people in high esteem, and we don't have that in America. And I think that makes it harder for us as we get older, because instead of being held in high esteem, we're made to be invisible and pushed to the side. And I think that's a lot of it. And I see that as when that aging process and the menopause and the hormones getting less, then the lack of respect, because I've been there. You're like, you're invisible. You go into a store and they don't want to wait on you because you're invisible. They want to look at somebody else that's younger over here to work with. And it's just the way it is in our society right now.
So I have questions for you, Claudine, because this is kind of what this podcast was for, was to give some help and some advice. So you gave us some good tips earlier, but if you had like one big piece of advice that you would give to women to help them face menopause, like right now, what would it be?
One thing.
Uh-huh.
I would say know that you're okay. Be kind to yourself, because the one thing I see over and over is women beating up on themselves, and that causes anxiety and that causes stress, and that actually makes everything worse. So being kind to yourself, giving yourself grace, spending time giving yourself care is actually going to yield many rewards and going to benefit you in a myriad of ways, including just how you feel about yourself. Like you said earlier, how do we go through life when we feel, fat and sweaty and whatever? Give yourself grace, love yourself.
It wouldn't have been so bad, but it always seemed to happen like right when I was in my boss's office, leaning over his desk or something to talk to him, and then all of a sudden it would be like, it's like, it was kind of embarrassing, but.
And instead of compassion on his part, it was kind of a disgust.
No, actually, he was very understanding. He was very
good.
Yes. So like I said, I have been very fortunate. My coworkers used to have fun with me. And like I said, I freely admit it would have been nice if they'd have been a little more understanding, but I can attest to the fact that it was probably better that I stayed in my office away from people. So I freely admit the mood swings. I think the mood swings were probably the worst of all of it. It was bad. It was really bad. That was probably my worst symptom, was the mood swings. It was horrible. So when you're happy one minute and then you want to rip somebody's heart out the next, and then the next minute you're in tears and you don't know why. So,
And
yeah.
you can't help it.
Nope.
And you don't know what's going on. And you don't want to do that.
I will say that my woman doctor prescribed medical marijuana for me, and it works for the mood. As
Good.
soon as I feel the rage, I just barely take just a little, just enough to just knock it right out. And so I don't, I know a lot of people smoke to get high or whatever. And that I do it because I have to get my mood under control. My aunt and I talk about the anger and the rage that you feel out of nowhere. It just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, why? Why am I angry for no reason? And so I do use a little bit of cannabis to cut the edge off, and then I'm like, wow, that really works. And it works for me. It may not work for everyone.
I always find humorous because society has had a taboo on marijuana.
Oh, yes.
I was one of the petition carrying people to legalize medical marijuana, but people still, it's like, are apologetic that they're using marijuana. We wouldn't be apologetic if the doctor prescribed us Prozac.
Right. Exactly. I wanted natural alternative. I didn't want Prozac. I wanted alternative. And she's like, well, then you have to smoke weed. And I was like, oh, great. I don't know what that's about, but I figured it out. It took a
Yeah.
while.
So,
I
and
figured it
I
out.
think everything we just need to normalize.
Amen.
Things need to be normalized.
That should be normal too,
Yeah,
because there's
exactly.
nothing bad about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, we are about out of time, so I have one question, and I want each of you to answer. Well, it's a two-part question. Each of you can answer, please, if you would. So, if you could describe menopause in one word, what would it be? And what can our podcast listeners do today to prepare for, if they're women, to embrace it if they're women already in the midst of the process, or if they know someone, what can they do to support their mom, their sister, their daughter? So question, if you could describe it in one word, what would it be? And then what can our listeners do to help either themselves or someone else? Let's start with Sherry.
well, I'll start with don't be too hard on yourself. Be upfront with people. Explain it. Like I said, my hormones are messed up right now. Bear with me. And I have one word: supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I don't know the word that I would have used, but it works.
That's just kind of like what menopause is.
It's all encompassing.
Yeah.
What about you, Lena?
Okay, so the word is it's privilege. And I know that's an odd word, but again, it's a privilege to get to this point in my life. And so I'm going to say it's a privilege to be here. The negative word would be hell. Um, and that's how I feel about it. But the positive word would be privilege. And I would just say to advocate for yourself. If you don't want to take Prozac, advocate for that, because you shouldn't have to take something if you don't want to, and or you shouldn't have to do a procedure if you don't want to. I mean, if it's going to help you, sure, but if it's not going to benefit you, or if you don't want to, then advocate.
Claudine?
I would say metamorphosis. Because if you think about, the process a caterpillar goes into to turn into a butterfly, it is messy, right? It's hard work sometimes, but you get a butterfly at the end. And I feel like a lot of women, as we age, we actually get better. We're like fine wine. You know what I'm saying? Like we get better as we age. And I think, yeah. And I think in terms of what I would recommend, I would say get to the root cause. Because if you're experiencing symptoms, there is a reason. If you have anxiety, depression, mood swings, there's something in your body that needs to be addressed that fixing that thing may be what you need, right? But I would say getting to the root cause so that you can make your body um as balanced as it needs to be so that it can do the work. It wants to do the work for you. Your body wants to be in a good spot to do all the functions, and we just need to give it the right environment.
I like it. Well, this was actually we could keep talking for hours, I think, but we need to call it quits. So, you guys, y'all know the drill. I say it every time: like, subscribe, share, do the stuff, hit the buttons, everything, because we're trying to grow this channel. So, do the stuff, because if you want more good conversations about things that nobody else will talk about, then you know how to get that to happen. And I will post links to Sherry. I will post links so you can connect with Sherry in case you want to help her start a community of women that can support each other or whatever we need to do. I'm going to post a link to Lena so that if you want to see her menopause character, I can't wait. I want to see this. Can't wait to see this. I think you shared a picture of her on Facebook or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to come up with a name.
As soon as you started talking, I was like, oh, yeah, I've seen her.
Yeah.
And Claudine gave us a lot of good information with links to a lot of different resources. So I will post all of those as well. You'll find them all in the program notes. I hope you found this useful. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks so much for being with us. And we'll see you again next time.